Dear friends, uh, today we discuss about antiviral drugs. So, as we have already started chemotherapeutics, so one of the important chemotherapeutics means the antibiotics, antiviral drugs, antifungal drugs, antiprotozoal drugs, and some other miscellaneous chemotherapeutic agents. So, this field, that drugs effective for different infectious diseases are very vital, and now we understand that situation, why there is so much difficult situation we are now in. Actually we are now entering that, because we have no effective therapeutics, no effective antiviral drugs, and we have no effective vaccine. So as you know that, development in this field require a long-term dedication, long-term commitment, and long-term budget from our health administration. It is not a sudden thing that we try today and we'll discover new drug. It needs long-term commitment. Now, antiviral drugs are very fundamental from the pharmacology, particularly the antibiotics, antiviral, antifungal, antiprotozoal. So these drugs, antitubercular, antimalarial. So these drugs we have to learn from the pharmacology, and this is the discipline we are able to learn the basics of these drugs. So you should learn very carefully these topics. Okay. Now, antiviral drugs we discuss the part on, mainly focusing on non-retroviral drugs. In part 2 we focus on antiretroviral drugs, that is mainly we focus on anti-HIV drugs. Okay, so this topic basically there is a miscellaneous drugs will come we actually encounter and we subsequently discuss. Okay, so as you know, the main problem in the development of antiviral drugs is that the target are changing basically. So you are developing a drug based on target strategy, but if the target changes, your drug will be ineffective. That is the main problem. And drug development in antiviral category is very difficult, particularly the culturing of the virus and their subsequent maintenance of that culture in the laboratory. Maintaining the biosafety standards is very tough strategy. Now say this is a diagram we are showing that now the novel coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, you know that. Okay, so this is a generic structure. Basically, you know that the surface papillomas, that lipid envelope from the host cell, and inside that capsid, and you know that inside the capsid, that genetic material is there. So this is a very famous actually picture. Basically, you know that two scientists they actually introduces the drug development in antiviral field. You know that this person with both are Nobel laureate, George Hissings and Gertrude Alien. They are pioneer in this field because they discovered uh, acyclovir drug actually. So this is the first effective drug in this field. They are also famous for development of cancer chemotherapeutic, particularly the purine nucleotide analogs. Okay, like 6-mercaptopurine like drugs. They are also very famous for the discovery of allopurinol, because these drugs are all basically purine nucleotide analogs, and they are very effective as antiviral drugs in the cancer chemotherapeutics for leukemia treatment, and also you know that gout management of gout we have allopurinol. Okay, so this is just a brief introduction about the antiviral drugs. Now we are going in the subject proper. First come into that herpes virus basically, because you know we have limited drugs. Among the different viruses we have some effective drugs against the herpes virus. So that is why we try to enter into the herpes virus, and we mainly focus on anti-herpes virus drugs. Okay, so if you thought of that herpes virus in microbiology, you will learn that it is a DNA virus. Okay, so DNA virus, as this is a DNA virus, if you look at the life cycle of this, there is a surface attachment, then uncoating, transfer of the DNA into the nucleus, and subsequently generation of mRNA, and from the mRNA they utilizing the host cell machinery, protein synthesis machinery, and formation of different proteins, structural proteins, viral enzymes, regulatory proteins, and assembly and binding. That simple thing you know from your school standard, you know from this, but this is the basic. Basically all the step is very important because different drugs actually targeting the different step. The most crucial step here is inhibition of viral DNA polymerase. So if you inhibit that viral DNA polymerase, it's a DNA virus. Important thing is that in herpes virus this DNA is not integrated into the host chromosome. So this is very important thing. If it is integrated into host chromosome, cure is very difficult, because that proviral DNA, if it is integrated into the chromosome, it is usually not easy to remove. Basically, you know, that is the problem in HIV, that is the problem in hepatitis B, because that DNA integrated into the host chromosome. But in herpes virus there is no such integration. But yes, herpes virus having very latent type of infections is there, and many of the times it is difficult to cure. It actually causes recurrence. Okay, so if you look at this step, inhibition of the viral DNA polymerase, here in herpes virus mainly drugs are focusing on here, inhibition of DNA polymerase, not other steps here. Okay, so we have effective drugs like, so now from this point we have to remember some drug name. Yes, acyclovir, ganciclovir, foscarnet, vidaravir. So why we are saying in this sequence? Because as per clinical importance, acyclovir is important, ganciclovir is very important, then foscarnet, then vidaravir. Okay, so these are basically different nucleotide analogs. They are synthesized, they are therapeutically explored. Okay, so like acyclovir is a very safe, very good drug. Okay, so this is about the replicating cycle of the herpes virus. And what are the drugs we have to remember? So these drugs we call anti-herpes virus drugs, and herpes virus is a DNA virus. There are many herpes virus genera, is a broad, there is different types, type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, type 5. In this way, this is a long classification is there. Okay, so these drugs having different susceptibility on the different types of the herpes viruses. Okay, so we subsequently we focus on that topic actually. Then we have replicative cycle of influenza virus. So first we are trying to, what are the targets basically. Say influenza virus is RNA virus. Life cycle is little bit different. Overall basic process is similar. There should be attachment, then uncoating. Okay, so influenza virus is RNA virus. Usually RNA virus does is replication in the cytoplasm because they have RNA itself, so that RNA directly goes into the protein synthesis machinery, ribosome, and they translate the respective proteins. But important thing here is that exception is the influenza virus. Even it is a RNA virus, it actually replicate inside the nucleus. Okay, and it produces that RNA, that coding RNA, and from that RNA on actually will become genomic RNA, on will become mRNA. So mRNA goes for protein synthesis, and genomic RNA actually packed with structural proteins, and there is a body. Now we have to look what are the targets. So first of all, this endocytosis process is there. In the endocytosis process, if you thought of that, why there is a uncoating? Basically in the endosome membrane, basically there is one protein, actually M2 protein. So this M2 protein allow entry of proton from the cytoplasm into the endosome. It concentrates proton inside it, actually decreases the pH inside the endosome, and that helps that uncoating of the capsid proteins. And you know that it is one of the important step in the influenza virus. M2 protein plays important role by decreasing the pH inside the endosome. It is basically a proton channel. Okay, so this will be a target. So this will be a very important target like amantadine, rimantadine, AMA and RIMA. These amantadine and rimantadine, AMA and RIMA, you have already learned that these are the anti-Parkinsonian drugs. But these drugs primarily developed as an anti-influenza drugs. But yes, subsequently it has been proved that it has dopamine facilitator action, and that uses actually came after studying its adverse effects, it having different CNS adverse effects, and people try to understand why there is such CNS adverse effects, and they found out that it has role on the dopamine. You know, normal people, their normal dopamine level, if it facilitates dopamine, you know, the dopamine actually psychotic in that if it is elevated. So that is a you know that kinds of pharmacological studies helps actually developing new therapeutics. Okay, another very important thing here, that ribavirin. So ribavirin is a broad spectrum antiviral drugs. From this point you have to remember ribavirin. So ribavirin is a broad spectrum. It is not only anti-influenza drugs, it has very different uses, and it is a very important drug in that sense. So ribavirin is a broad spectrum antiviral drugs. In our you know that novel coronavirus, this 2019, people tried ribavirin, but it is not so much of effective actually ribavirin in this virus actually. Okay, so it inhibits that RNA polymerase. Okay, so it's a purine analog. We discuss in subsequent topic. It's a purine analog, inhibit RNA polymerase. So this is a target. It's a new kind of target. It is different target actually if you compare with anti-herpes virus drugs. So anti-influenza having a target like M2 protein, RNA polymerase, another target at the end stage, so that budding, release of the virion, newly synthesized virion from the host cell into the subsequent adjacent outside of the cell, and again attachment to the bystander and near about cells. So what is about that? This release process is important here. If you inhibit the release by drug like oseltamivir, we do not saying all the drugs. Prototype drug is oseltamivir. You should remember this name, oseltamivir. So if you use this drug like oseltamivir, this budding and release will be inhibited. How? Because this release process require on sialyl acid containing neuraminidase. So this neuraminidase enzyme inhibitor there, neuraminidase, actually they clip that you know that extracellular oligosaccharides protein, and they inhibit that release process, and this release process is inhibited by oseltamivir by blocking on particular enzyme neuraminidase, and neuraminidase is present on the influenza viral surface coating. So this neuraminidase inhibitor inhibit the release. So what will be happen? So there will be no release. So virus actually aggregated already infected cell, but there is less shedding, there is less spreading of the virion. So that helps the host immunity to take over the or to tackle the situation uh, because there is a less shedding and less spread of the virus. Okay, so this is about the targets of drugs in case of influenza virus. Okay, so this diagram is very important. You just follow this simple diagram, you will understand that we should not to learn in very details in every drug because it is difficult for you. uh, Antiviral drugs is little bit difficult actually. Now the major sites of the antiviral drugs action in on single figure. So what are the different targets? First of all, viral attachment and entry. So this step we call penetration. So this penetration step can be blocked by the different drugs, and these different drugs here we are enumerating, they actually belongs to the different types of the drugs because this is a summary figure basically to some extent. So there is not a single group of viruses there. Say like this entry process is inhibited in case of HIV by enfuvitiride. So this drug we discuss. Maravirac we'll discuss later. Docosanol in herpes simplex virus. Then your palivizumab, this is a monoclonal antibody for RSV. RSV is a respiratory syncytial virus. Respiratory syncytial virus is a paramyxovirus. Like in influenza we have said that is an orthomyxovirus. There is another virus is paramyxovirus. We learn in microbiology in details that respiratory syncytial virus. Okay. Now, after the penetration, there is uncoating, early protein synthesis, nucleic acid synthesis, late protein synthesis and processing, packaging, assembly and release. So, this uncoating step we already said this is a revision that amantadine, rimantadine that is blocked in influenza by M2 protein blocker. The nucleic acid synthesis is a primary target. This is our actually eye opener, basically nucleic acid synthesis inhibition, like say blocked by different types of drugs like in HIV, in hepatitis B virus. Okay, so like these drugs called NRTI. Okay, we'll learn later that you know that NRTI, that is actually nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors. Okay, so NNRTI is non-nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors. Okay, so different drugs like acyclovir, foscarnet, we'll discuss later. Now blocked by protease inhibitors, because protease enzyme is very important, because you know there is a polyprotein synthesis usually from the viral mRNA, and that mRNA actually translated into polyprotein, and that polyprotein actually cut into pieces of the required structural proteins, non-structural proteins. Okay, so that important step is done by protease. So protease enzyme is penultimate enzyme here, and that protease enzyme inhibitors are very important in case of HIV drug. Okay, now we have a release process inhibitors, and that is a typical example is influenza, that is neuraminidase inhibitors, oseltamivir we have said. Okay, so this is about the major size of antiviral drugs. So from your standard textbook we will get all that information. We try to focus on that. What are the basic process? Name takes time to remember. First try to remember the name we are actually stressed on, that important names, prototype drug. Then subsequently if you want to remember more names, that actually takes more time actually. Okay, so this is about the drugs. Now this is a summary basically. What are the sites of target, what are the targets, and what are the drugs. So like cell entry is important, so attachment penetration is the process, and that can be inhibited by soluble DQ receptors, different types of antibodies or fusion inhibitors, like in HIV we have enfivirtide we have said. Uncoating and release, so ion channel blockers is an option. Capsid stabilizers are like that. So if you block that, there is a capsid stabilization, because capsid needs destabilization to release the genome into the host cell. That is one thing. Transcription inhibitors, we have said that there are different targets: DNA polymerase for DNA virus, RNA polymerase for RNA virus, reverse transcriptase for retroviruses, helicase for retroviruses, primase, integrase. These are the very different powerful enzymes for that synthesis of the genome, transcription of the genome, then integration of the genome. Integrase helps in the integration of the genome into the host cell chromosome. So such kinds of enzymes are very important. Now these different enzymes also nowadays we use as an analytical tool, as a chemical reagent for diagnostic purposes. Like nowadays we done RT-PCR methods of diagnosis in COVID-19. So we use that different enzymes basically as a analytical tools, as a chemical reagents nowadays. So our field of molecular biology is advanced in such an extent, and studying virology is very important, because virology study helps understand the molecular biology. It helps to develop different analytical grade reagents, because virus having enormous potential of application. So that actually utilizes in molecular biology different applications, development of therapeutics, development of different DNA carriers, development of that our nowadays cutting edge research are going on, actually that genetic therapy, gene therapy. Okay, so translation process, protease inhibitors we have said, very important here. Protease inhibitors, protease inhibitors for post translation, because that polyprotein actually degraded to that target structural proteins. So in the translation of the viral proteins, or there are different regulatory proteins, early, late, intermediate regulatory proteins are there, that can be inhibited by, like say, your interferons are there. Interferons will come later. Antisense oligonucleotides we have on drug, actually FDA approved drug for antisense oligonucleotides, that will come actually. Okay, so this is all about we discuss. Okay, we have to remember the different steps, and just systematic way you should learn the antiviral drugs. Just follow the systematic way. Okay, now anti-herpes virus drugs proper. Here we have to remember some name, like acyclovir. This is a prototype drug, very useful drug in day-to-day practice. So acyclovir we have to remember. You should practice the name acyclovir. And if you remember acyclovir, there is a prodrug of acyclovir, valacyclovir. Very simple, acyclovir to valacyclovir. Why we have made such sense? Because acyclovir is a very low oral bioavailability, we have made halyl ester prodrug of acyclovir, so valacyclovir. So acyclovir oral bioavailability is only 20%, it is 70%. So very important here. Then cidofovir, foscarnet. Then if you remember the similar kinds of drug, acyclovir, valacyclovir. Then your pencyclovir, ganciclovir. So ganciclovir is a prodrug of pencyclovir. In our body, ganciclovir is actually activated to pencyclovir. Then if we have these drugs, so then valganciclovir, similar kind of strategy we have used here to improve the oral bioavailability. Okay. Then another cidofovir, foscarnet, iodoxyuridine, trifluridine. So these are the anti-herpes virus drugs, and all these drugs basically targeting the viral DNA polymerase. Because if you look at the structure, they are all, say there is a purine analogs, pyrimidine analogs, purine analogs, purine analogs, purine analogs, pyrimidine analogs, pyrimidine analogs. So they are basically, you know, that nucleotide analogs. Foscarnet is a little bit different drugs. This is basically phosphoformate. So look at the formic acid and, you know, phosphoric acid. Yes, that actually integrated. So that also inhibit that DNA polymerase basically. Okay. So chemical structure of herpes virus, chemical structure is not required for you, but for understanding this visualization of the figure is important. We have to remember some important name. Again we are repeating: acyclovir, valacyclovir, pencyclovir, ganciclovir, ganciclovir to valganciclovir. So this is very good. If you remember this name, it's sufficient. If you remember more, so these drugs will come. Okay. So this is overall our strategy to remembering this name, and why we have done such sense acyclovir to ganciclovir to improve the oral bioavailability. Pencyclovir is active drug, ganciclovir is a prodrug, you remember. So ganciclovir will convert into pencyclovir, valganciclovir will convert into acyclovir. Okay, so valganciclovir will convert it to ganciclovir, again ganciclovir will convert to pencyclovir. So this is all about this classification. Here we have said that anti-herpes virus drugs here. Okay, now we are entering into mechanism of action. This is the question usually asked in university question paper usually. Acyclovir is very important drug. Again, acyclovir, how it acts as a anti-herpes virus drugs, or how it acts by the herpes simplex virus, because acyclovir is a very important drug in herpes simplex virus infection. How it acts basically. So again we have to draw this simple diagram. The entry of the virus genome, entry of the genome into the nucleus. These steps we know that. Now obviously the virus is a very powerful in replication. So they are a very powerful tool, having replication tool they have actually. So they replicate. So it is a DNA virus. So they having a enzyme called herpes virus DNA polymerase, you know. So herpes virus DNA polymerase is essential for this replication process. Okay. So there is another kinase enzyme is there, that is called herpes thymidine kinase. So this acyclovir needs to be activated to acyclovir triphosphate. So acyclovir basically a guanosine nucleoside analog. So this is a guanosine nucleoside analog. So it should be activated to the triphosphate form, otherwise it will be not able to compete. So this acyclovir is first activated by herpes simplex thymidine kinase. So this is the virus specific thymidine kinase. So this thymidine kinase does is monophosphate form and diphosphate triphosphate form by cellular kinases. Okay, so what first step of activation by virus specific thymidine kinase enzyme. This is very important step here, you have to remember. Now this acyclovir triphosphate, when it access to the herpes virus DNA polymerase, there will be termination of the chain elongation, because this acyclovir does not have, you know, that 3' hydroxyl group. Okay, so in that base there is no 3' hydroxyl group. So normally, you know, DGTP, deoxy guanosine triphosphate, having 3' hydroxyl group. So next base will come and attach to that 3' hydroxyl group of deoxyribose, because it is DNA, so deoxyribose. So that if there is no 3' hydroxyl group, there will be chain termination. So this is called counterfeit incorporation or false incorporation of the nucleotides. We call this counterfeit incorporation of nucleotides. And if there is a counterfeit incorporation, there will be chain termination because there will be no further chain elongation. So the DNA synthesis is inhibited, so replication will be inhibited. Now one very important step here, why acyclovir is so much selective to the only virus infected cell. That is why it is very safe drug. So it is a very important step here that acyclovir is highly concentrated inside the cell, because acyclovir when it enters inside the cell, first it is activated by the herpes simplex virus specific thymidine kinase, or we call virus specific thymidine kinase. So this enzyme will be expressed only in the infected cell. So that will be activated to the monophosphate and subsequently into the triphosphate form. So this first step is penultimate step, and that is why the drug is selectively acts on the virus infected cell only. So this is a very important advantage of using these acyclovir like drugs. Okay. Now in an elaborate form, uh, herpes virus DNA polymerase is there, 5' end is there, you know that 3' end is there. So 3' hydroxyl group is essential. If you do not provide 3' hydroxyl group, there will be no chain elongation and there will be termination. So this is why this is the mechanism by which that acyclovir inhibits the DNA synthesis of herpes simplex virus DNA polymerase. Okay, so this mechanism of action is very important. Now if you look at the in very short way, in a very salient way, how other drugs basically acts. Simply acyclovir, pencyclovir, ganciclovir. So virus specific enzymes, thymidine kinase, or this UL97, this is the enzyme for your cytomegalovirus. Okay, so virus specific thymidine kinase, and UL97 is also a kinase for cytomegalovirus. So activated to monophosphate, subsequent step by host kinases to diphosphate, triphosphate, and competitive inhibition we call counterfeit incorporation mechanism. From general pharmacology concept, one is counterfeit incorporation into the DNA. Okay, but these drug like trifluridine, cidocovir, they are directly activated by host kinases. So obviously that drug will not be so much selective like acyclovir, pencyclovir, ganciclovir to only virus infected cell. Okay, so these are anti-herpes agents. Name, we have to remember some name, and mechanism of acyclovir is very important in this figure. And in comparison to the other drugs, at which step they are actually entering. Okay, now we have to remember some uses of anti-herpes virus drugs. Okay, very important uses, we just try to discuss about that. You know that herpes virus, different types of the herpes viruses there, like so classical like say herpes simplex virus type 1, type 2, cytomegalovirus is there. Okay, you know that herpes simplex virus type 1 usually causes infection above the waist, below the waist is usually herpes simplex virus type 2. So if you look at this entity here, it is mainly the herpes simplex virus infection. This is for type 1 infection, that is called orolabial herpes. Okay, so this condition is very recurrent condition. Acyclovir is obviously the drug of choice, or valacyclovir, because they have better oral bioavailability. And particularly there is on immunocompromised patients, neonates particularly, HSV type 2 is actually causes herpes simplex virus, meningoencephalitis. So that is a very dangerous condition. Okay, meningoencephalitis, particularly the women having HSV infection in the genital tract. So during the vaginal delivery, there may be entry of the virus into the newborn, and there may be development of that meningoencephalitis. So that encephalitis is particularly very high mortality rate. So acyclovir IV routes of administration is preferred. So this meningoencephalitis mainly caused by HSV type 2. They mainly causes infection in the genital regions. Okay. So this is about the herpes simplex virus type 1 and type 2, and your acyclovir, you have to remember acyclovir is available in different forms, injectable forms for emergency, very emergency conditions, oral formulations is there, tablet formulations is there. For pediatric uses we have suspensions are there. Okay, so for herpes simplex there are some miscellaneous drugs. If you want to remember, you can remember, like docosanol, iodoxyuridine. So like docosanol is a surface acting type of agent. It's like a fatty acid, polyhydroxy fatty acid. So docosanol is a surface acting. It actually causes dissolution of the lipid envelope of the virus. So it is for topical application. Iodoxyuridine is another drug that is also pyrimidine derivative. Uridine, you know, iodoxyuridine. So iodine is actually attached to the pyrimidine ring. So iodoxyuridine usually nowadays is used for only one use, that is for HSV keratitis, herpes simplex virus keratitis. You will learn later herpes simplex virus causes keratitis, and that is a very dangerous condition. Keratitis means inflammation of the cornea. So herpes simplex virus keratitis, iodoxyuridine drops can be used, or very severe condition again we have to use acyclovir parenteral use. So iodoxyuridine, primarily iodoxyuridine eye drops is available. Okay, so this is about herpes simplex virus type 1 and type 2. This very important group of drugs we use in these conditions, and these different clinical conditions, like say this is a CT scan actually representing that herpes simplex virus meningoencephalitis. So that to represent that we actually given this figure. Okay. And now another group of anti-herpes virus drugs used is that against the varicella zoster virus. As you know that varicella zoster again another type of herpes virus, and very common in our community, you know, varicella zoster actually causes chickenpox. So varicella zoster, like this typical presentation, as you know that, you know, maculopapular rash with vesicular eruptions, with more distribution on the trunk actually, less involvement on the periphery, that means in extremity. So another closer look of that lesion is actually in fair person, basically on fair person means fair skin person. So the lesions like we described as dewdrop on a rose petal on vesicle actually, you know that, and there is a color changes. Look at that color gradient changes. Okay, whatever may be, that chicken pox is very common condition. Usually in the normal healthy individuals there is less complications, but in pediatric patients that may lead to secondary infection, or in the immunocompromised and elder patients that chickenpox may be very severe enough, may cause viral pneumonia, viral meningoencephalitis, encephalitis. So that is why the drug treatment required. In the normal individuals, if you prescribe that acyclovir, within 24 hours of appearance of the rash, disease severity decreases. Okay, so there is rapid recovery from that disease condition. Here we have to remember the dose of acyclovir for at least this condition. The dose of acyclovir for adult patients is that you know that acyclovir we have to use here in the dose of 800 milligram 4 times a day for 5 days. Again I am repeating this dose, 800 milligram 4 times a day, 800 milligram 4 times a day for 5 days for adult patient. Okay, we have to use the dose as per body weight for pediatric patients. Acyclovir is safe even in pregnancy. It's a very safe drug. It is safe even for a condition where you have to use for long-term uses for recurrent infection. So in that condition, it is safe up to use to 10 years. We have safety data is there. So this is about the varicella zoster. The problem is that once patients having varicella zoster infection, you know that virus actually become latent in the, you know, that dorsal root ganglion in the spinal cord, that neuron, because it's a neurotrophic virus, and it resides in the dorsal root ganglion for long periods of time. And when there is a decrease in the immunity, body immunity, due to some different reason, due to some treatment, due to some other reason, okay, due to some other drugs, okay, so due to some other diseases, due to some debility or elder age group patients, there is decrease in the immunity in the body. So these virus, which is become latent, now reactivated. How it is reactivated? It is now reactivated in this form. So look at that. It follows a particular dermatome. When you see these type of lesion, group lesions, vesicular lesions, particularly following a particular dermatome on side of the body, look at this is spinal cord, is a vertebral column, this is on site of this. So such lesions actually represent a dermatomal distribution. So this type of disease we call, this is called herpes zoster. So same virus, varicella zoster virus, now it is named as herpes zoster virus. It become latent in the dorsal root ganglion and it is reactivated in the form of herpes zoster here due to fall in the body immunity. Okay, these lesions are infectious, so patient does not have any immunity about that varicella zoster, may acquire infection or may develop chickenpox from this lesion. So this is very painful because this is following the nerves. This is neuropathic itself, very neuralgic pains happen. Okay, so here drug we can use that valacyclovir or acyclovir. Obviously we prefer valacyclovir because of better oral bioavailability. Okay, so this is about that. We should not confuse between varicella zoster and herpes zoster, same virus but two different spectra. Okay, so on person having chickenpox, always the risk of developing herpes zoster in subsequent period. So how we can prevent this? So someone if actually taken vaccine against varicella zoster in appropriate time and does not develop uh, varicella zoster, so no risk of developing herpes zoster. But obviously, even that vaccine over the time, that protection little bit decreases over the time. So whatever may be, we have also vaccine against varicella zoster. We have effective vaccine. Okay. So this is, we are discussing about uses of anti-herpes virus drugs. Now, on very severe vision-threatening condition is CMV retinitis. Usually normal person does not have developed CMV retinitis. CMV retinitis is very common in this condition, in this era, because of the HIV infection. Because person having HIV infection, they have immunocompromised, and cytomegalovirus, it is normally present in normal individuals because this is very ubiquitous virus, but it does not cause any infection. This is a example of opportunistic infection of cytomegalovirus when there is a CD4 count is very low, particularly in advanced HIV infection. So in this situation, person develops CMV retinitis. So like it is called sausage cheese appearance. Look at retinal damage, huge inflammation in the retina. There may be necrosis of the retina even, and this is very vision threatening. CMV retinitis can also develop persons taking cancer chemotherapeutic drugs because they also causes huge immunosuppression. Or patients taking transplantation patients having immunosuppressants having also chance of CMV retinitis. So we have to treat very urgently, or we have to give the drug prophylactically before before actually transplantation, before prescribing immunosuppressants. So here drug is ganciclovir. Okay, so ganciclovir is a very important drug here. Obviously we have to give the ganciclovir for IV route if patients develop such retinitis. For prophylaxis, we have valganciclovir, we know that. So valganciclovir can be given if you suspect that this patient going to develop that, because cytomegalovirus is common, ubiquitous. Okay, because in the community, if you measure the titer against the cytomegalovirus antibody in the community, so most of the persons is positive. That means it is very ubiquitous virus. Only develop opportunistic infection if host develop immunodepression. So on investigational drugs, the fomifizin. So this is different kinds of drug. In general discussion, we have uttered this name, fomifizin. It's an antisense oligonucleotide. So this is particularly for CMV retinitis. We inject inside the vitreous. Okay, inside the vitreous body in the eye. So from where this is released and they inhibit. So intravitreal injection we have to give fomifizin. It's an antisense oligonucleotide of the viral mRNA. Okay, so early intermediate, there are different regulatory genes in the virus. It is actually early intermediate part of the genome it is targeted. It is antisense, that means its base pair against that particular mRNA, and after this antisense oligonucleotide attached with that mRNA will be degraded. So it directly acts at the local site particularly, when you inject inside the vitreous. Okay, so but importantly you have to remember ganciclovir. Ganciclovir, cidofovir. Cidofovir is also useful in CMV retinitis also. Like ganciclovir, we have another drug, cidofovir, that is also useful in herpes simplex, cytomegalovirus retinitis. Okay, now we going to discuss a different group of viruses, that is we call orthomyxoviruses, influenza viruses. There are different types of influenza viruses. So this is the structure of the influenza virus. Okay, so influenza virus, you know that this is host cell derived lipid envelope. This is the capsid. If you look at the genome, this is the fragmented genome. So influenza virus, RNA virus, but characteristics is that it has a fragmented RNA strand, negative sense RNA gene. On the surface, the papillomas, different types of papillomas. Here we classify the virus based on the different types of papillomas. Like we have this neuraminidase, and most abundant papillomas here, hemagglutinin. This is called hemagglutinin. So hemagglutinin, and we have neuraminidase. Okay, and this is the M2 protein. It is itself present on the virion. Helps in the endocytosis process. We have shown that figure actually. So why influenza virus is so much changing? There is a important term we use: antigenic shift and antigenic drift. Okay, so shift and drift, we call drift and shift. So small sense drift, major sense in antigenic structure is shift. So that may leads to that epidemics and pandemics. So swine flu, H1N1, we have a pandemic before this coronavirus pandemic. So why there is such a change? There is a genetic reassortment of this genome basically. So this genome actually reassorted. Say some piece of that genome exchanged with some other animal influenza viruses. Like for swine flu, the swine acts as a mixing vessel. So mixing vessel. So human influenza virus, swine influenza virus mixes by genetic reassortment, by exchanging of these RNA fragments. This is a natural selection methods, obviously, for its own survival, obviously, in the nation. Okay, so now we have set what are the targets we have. One is M2 protein is a target we have, neuraminidase is target. So this is for influenza, and RNA polymerase. Okay, RNA polymerase will be there, and RNA polymerase will be the target. Now anti-influenza drugs. Okay, so these drugs itself, there are many things is there, many understanding on drugs actually takes time, but here we try to discuss very briefly, very saliently basically. So first we have to know some anti-influenza drugs names, like amantadine, rimantadine we have said, oseltamivir, zanamivir. So oseltamivir is a very important drug. We have to focus repeatedly. We have telling the oseltamivir. Okay, because this is the drug actually used in just recent pandemics of swine flu. Okay, so these anti-influenza drugs, amantadine, rimantadine, these drugs, they actually causes inhibition of the M2 protein, and that in the endosome they actually prevents the uncoating of the virion. Oseltamivir, they are neuraminidase inhibitor. So neuraminidase is very important enzyme. It's required the release of the virion from the cell, host cell, and it helps in the spreading of the virion also. And neuraminidase enzyme itself present as a papillomar, surface papillomar. So if you inhibit this, viral spreading will be inhibited, shedding will be inhibited, and now host immunity can take care of the situation. If little bit you can decrease the replication, you can decrease the release, decrease the spreading, decrease the infection of the adjacent cell, then host immunity you can take care of it. Then zanamivir, basically it's an intravenous formulation. It is an intravenous formulation. Similar drug like oseltamivir, zanamivir is an intravenous formulation. neuraminidase inhibitor. That is for most serious condition. Okay, most serious condition you have to give. Now here we have to remember one very important thing is that influenza virus broadly classified type A, type B based on their nucleocapsid antigenic structure. We learn in microbiology. Now A and B, amantadine rimantine only effective influenza A, but oseltamivir janamivir is effective both in influenza A and influenza B. Both it is effective. Say like swine flu, that is novel swine flu, that is H1N1. So that basically you can use two drugs because that is a type A influenza virus, amantadine and oseltamivir. So when there is actual evidence showed that because of the antigenic changes, because of the target changes, oseltamivir activity towards antiviral activity is decreased, then people actually revise the treatment protocol by combined use of amantadine with oseltamivir. Okay, so some important thing here, oseltamivir, regarding oseltamivir, we have to know something about that treatment dose for influenza A and B and prophylactic dose for influenza N, because this is practically important. Like say prophylaxis is very important, 75 milligram per oral OD, usually per oral OD, and for treatment it is twice daily. Okay, for treatment it is twice daily, and this should be continued at least for a week. Okay, this should be continued. Now during this swine flu epidemic, oseltamivir is formulated in different forms for different age groups of patients. On brand name here is Tamiflu, and this drug even recommended for less than 1 year age group patient. Okay, so this is about the oseltamivir. Here for influenza drug oseltamivir you have to remember. Okay, and sometimes question asked, competitive exam question asked, parenteral formulation. So usually janamivir is the parenteral formulations. Okay, and you should not forget about type A and type B. Amantadine always for A type of influenza virus, but oseltamivir, janamivir both A and B you can use. Now there is a very important group of drug called interferons. So interferons, you know, this is a natural cytokine molecule itself. Now this interferon having a very good property, that is antiviral property. Now this interferon can be used as a drug. Okay, so regarding this interferon we have to remember that interferon is a natural host defense against the viral infection. Interferon, it is a natural cytokine itself. Normally in our body, due to viral infection, due to some other chemical insults or other infectious agents, the interferons are released. Now there are different types of interferons. You know that interferons are type 1 interferon, type 2 interferon, type 3 interferon, or we call interferon alpha, interferon beta, interferon gamma. So among these interferons, antiviral activity mainly for interferon alpha and beta. Interferon gamma also called immune interferon, and this interferon gamma is basically released from T cell T lymphocytes, that is called immune interferon. Okay, so for antiviral activity it is interferon alpha and beta is very important. Interferon alpha is only non-glycosylated interferon. Okay, other interferon are glycosylated interferon. So why we are discussing about interferon? Because interferon is a very good therapeutics against the different viral diseases. In their therapeutic uses we understand this. So in our body when there is a viral infection, host cell usually releases interferons, immune cells releases interferons. So that interferons actually modulate the host cell in such a way that viral replication, viral spreading will be inhibited. So that property we can utilize interferon. So like in this COVID-19 people there is a clinical trial. People are trying, can be interferon is used in these conditions that patients developing severe disease condition actually. The basic thing here we have to say that interferon antiviral activity is based on the multiple mechanisms itself. So in broad sense, if you want to remember how interferon acts as antiviral drugs. So after viral infection, host cell produce interferon. Interferon alpha and beta is mainly antiviral activities there. Interferon gamma is the immune interferon. So that actually causes activation of the T lymphocytes. So first of all, they inhibit the transcription process. So interferon is a protein molecule itself. So they attach to the surface receptors, interferon receptors, and they activate the JAK-STAT kinase pathway. And that STAT protein go to the nucleus, bind to the particular DNA that is called interferon responsive elements, and from there different proteins, dozens of proteins actually produced. That proteins actually do the desired actions like inhibition of the viral transcription, inhibition of the viral translation process, inhibition of the post-translation processing, inhibition of the viral maturation, and inhibition of the viral release. So all the steps, that is interferon is a broad spectrum in its action. All the process is inhibited. That's a normal our host defense mechanism against the viral diseases. Okay. So these interferons are therapeutically explored actually. So interferon, previously we used natural interferon. Nowadays we use modified interferon. We have to remember nowadays we use pegylated interferon. Pegylated interferon means interferon molecule attached with polyethylene glycol. That is a polymer here we used and attached to the interferon molecule. And this pegylated interferon increases subcutaneous bioavailability. It increases the duration of action. So previously we have to use interferons 2 to 3 times a day. Now we have to use interferons once weekly. Once weekly is sufficient. So why such benefits happen? Because we pegylated the molecule. We have added polyethylene glycol molecule with the interferon molecule, and we increases the T-half of the molecule. The duration of action actually increases. So nowadays therapeutics, pegylated interferon is recommended, but pegylated interferon is very much costly basically. So this is in short we discuss interferon. From examination point of view, interferon comes as a short note. So two thing you know that interferon comes as a short note. Erythropoietin on hematopoietic factor comes as a short note. We should not confuse interferon or erythropoietin, but as a short note these two drugs are important. So interferon we have to prepare as a short note. And what are the uses? So how to prepare? Such brief description, how it acts, interferon, what are the formulations. Interferon means always parenteral. Okay, this can be given by IV route or subcutaneous route. And what are the clinical conditions where we use interferons? Most important is hepatitis C virus infection, hepatitis B virus infection, and other viral disease condition like molluscum contagiosum disseminated infections, Condylomata acuminata. Okay, that is mainly human papilloma virus infections. Okay, and there are some autoimmune disorders like multiple sclerosis. Interferon is used as a immunomodulators. Okay, so here we discussing the viral therapeutics. So hepatitis C, hepatitis B, molluscum contagiosum, Condylomata acuminata by human papilloma virus infections are important. Okay, so interferon with ribavirin, another antiviral drug, is used for hepatitis C virus infection and hepatitis B, particularly hepatitis C virus infection. Hepatitis B virus infection, particularly in disseminated condition, particularly in decompensated hepatic failure condition, then interferon can be used. But if the disease condition is so much decompensated, the interferon use is contraindicated. We have to know something about adverse effects of interferon: flu-like symptoms, liver enzyme elevation, thyroid function abnormalities, central nervous system adverse effects. Okay, these are the usual adverse effects of the interferon. We have to monitor the normal biochemistry for monitoring the adverse effects, and myelosuppression is very important. So normal cytological monitoring is important. Okay, total cell count we have to monitor because myelosuppression is very important adverse effects of interferon. So on miscellaneous immunomodulator drugs like say imiquimod having antiviral property, it is used on a surface for lesions like by human papillomavirus infection, Condylomata acuminata. For topical applications, we use actually imiquimod. So immunomodulator used for is antiviral property. Okay. So, but most important thing is interferon. We have to focus mainly on the interferon. Now, we briefly want to discuss about drugs effective for hepatitis B and hepatitis C. So, if you follow this replicative cycle of this virion, one striking thing is that triple C DNA. Triple C DNA means covalently linked circular DNA. Okay, circular DNA, that is closed covalently linked circular DNA. So this is typical of hepatitis B virus. So hepatitis B having such type of DNA, that is a DNA virus, that is hepadna virus. DNA virus is closed covalently circular DNA. Okay. So one important thing here, if you follow this process, basically receptor binding, uncoating, nuclear transport, formation of triple C DNA, translation, reverse transcription, then viral DNA synthesis and Golgi complex through mediated maturation. So striking feature in hepatitis B virus is that this DNA can be integrated. It is actually integrated in the host chromosome. That is why this infection is permanent. Cure is not possible now at these therapeutics. Cure in hepatitis B is not possible because of this DNA is integrated. And you know, hepatitis B virus is very important cause of terminal liver disease, end-stage liver disease and cirrhosis. Hepatitis B virus, here we have to thought of that important enzyme here. It produces two type of enzyme. One is DNA polymerase, one is reverse transcriptase. So hepatitis B having two features. On like a simple DNA virus having DNA polymerase, on reverse transcriptase like retrovirus. So that is why antiretroviral drug, anti-HIV drug also useful in hepatitis B virus. This point you should remember, that antiretroviral drug useful in hepatitis B virus management. Why? Because it is also having reverse transcriptase, and this reverse transcriptase causes that pre-genomic RNA is transcribed into the positive sense DNA, that is incorporated into that nucleocapsid core. So that is why it is actually useful antiretroviral drug. Retrovirus means having reverse transcriptase enzyme. Reverse transcriptase, you know, important enzyme for transcription of RNA into DNA. Okay, it is reverse of the central dogma of molecular biology. Okay, so whatever maybe, we have to know something about these anti-hepatitis B drugs. We discuss in very short. Okay, like what are the drugs very useful in hepatitis B? As we have already said, interferon can be used. Interferon usually used in advanced liver disease. So drugs like we have lamivudine, tenofovir, entecavir, adefovir, telbivudine. So these are the anti-hepatitis B virus drugs. Among these, lamivudine and tenofovir, this is two important drugs in HIV drugs category. Okay, they are anti-HIV drugs. They having property against hepatitis. So these drugs can be useful. So patients having co-infection of hepatitis B and HIV. These drugs are very important. Entecavir, adefovir, telbivudine. If you look at the structure most of the time, so lamivudine, look at that, pyrimidine analog. Tenofovir, it is a, you know that this is basically, you know, adenine analog. It's a purine analog. Adefovir itself. Okay. Then entecavir also. So purine analog. So they are more or less actually modification of different types of nucleotides, nucleosides. So if you thought patients having hepatitis B, which drug we should choose? So number on drug should be entecavir. Okay, number one drug should be entecavir. Why entecavir? Because of ease of administration, first of all, once daily administration possible. Less chance of developing resistance against the drugs. Most important thing, rapid developing of resistance against the drugs. So entecavir, even after 4-year, 5-year use, very less chance of developing resistance against this drug. So that is why entecavir nowadays the first line drug against the hepatitis B. And another very important point regarding entecavir is that very good viral load suppression. Okay, so it rapidly decreases the viral titer and it improves the different serological markers like hepatitis B, HBeAg. Okay, that is actually reflective of chronic active hepatitis. So entecavir is very good in this sense. They causes very good improvement in virological marker, very good improvement in hepatological marker like histological index, liver enzymes, less chance of developing resistance to the drug. So that is why entecavir is the number one drug against the hepatitis B. Then tenofovir is also a good choice. Okay, but tenofovir has a on adverse effects like it is actually that it adverse effects against the kidney actually. Okay, so they causes damage to the kidney and elevation of the creatinine. Lamivudine is a very good drug, safe drug, overall very safe drug lamivudine. But problem is that lamivudine causes rapid emergence of resistance, rapid development of resistance against hepatitis B. So lamivudine and drug, that is why nowadays is not preferred. But the cost of treatment with lamivudine is very low. Even a country like a resource limited country like that, lamivudine even it is used for management of hepatitis B. Okay, so this is a very in nutshell actually. So very less discussion obviously, but we try to focus on very important point for your undergraduate curriculum. I believe this discussion is sufficient for your exam preparation. Okay, from your book, if you interested, you may learn more actually about these drugs. Now follow this diagram again. What you can see here, receptor binding endocytosis, then we are seeing the long polyprotein. Look at the different structure, different E1, E2, this means early regulatory proteins, NS, NS2, NS3, this is the non-structural proteins. So different non-structural proteins are there. So this is basically a hepatitis C virus. Hepatitis C virus is a RNA virus. Hepatitis B virus is a hepatna. Hepatna, DNA. In the name there is a DNA, hepatna, pDNA. So DNA virus. So this is the RNA virus, hepatitis C virus. So a few years back, there is no effective treatment against hepatitis C. We have some treatment against hepatitis B, like we have discussed entecavir, lamivudine, telbivudine, such drugs are there, tenofovir, but no drug against hepatitis C. But this is now changed in last decade. Why? Because this is RNA virus and we have targeted drug development approach we have developed, and that is why we have developed different drugs against hepatitis C. Important advantage of hepatitis C is that hepatitis C virus, RNA virus, so chromosome, it is not integrated to the host chromosome, so there is no permanent proviral infection. So that is the problem of hepatitis B. Even you can depress that viral titer to an undetectable level, but even that some viral proviral DNA actually is integrated to the host cell chromosome, that may leads to subsequent reactivation. But hepatitis C, you may cure the patient. So these drugs are very important, that's why. Now what are the drugs? In very short, these are the anti-HCV drugs. First come ribavirin with interferon alpha. Okay, first come with ribavirin with interferon alpha. So if you thought of that ribavirin with interferon alpha, this was the very important drug. When other drugs are not effective, particularly the genotype 1 and genotype 4, where ribavirin and interferon alpha is the drug of choice. Now, targeted drugs like non-structural protein 3,4A protease inhibitors. They are protease inhibitors, they are targeting at the post-translational modification levels. So at the post-translational modification levels they are acting, like cimeprevir, grazoprevir. So they are called previrs. Suffix is previs. So all NS3,4A protease inhibitors we call previrs. So like cimeprevir, grazoprevir, lots of previs are there. They are orally active drugs. Prescribing is very simple actually. NS5A protease inhibitors, daclatasvir, ledipasvir. So they are asvir. So their suffix is asvir. So we are giving some important names like ledipasvir, commonly used drugs. NS5B RNA polymerase inhibitors. RNA polymerase inhibitors means they inhibit the replication, that is called sofosbuvir. So this is a very famous drug, very costly drug. But in India, pharmaceutical companies, they actually does not obeying the patent rule properly, and they manufactured these drugs in bulk, and they exported these drugs to different countries. Although international council actually protest against that, but India actually protected the people's life. So different country actually they buy this drug from India market, actually Indian, from the Indian pharmaceutical companies. So like combination of sofosbuvir, veltapasvir. Asvir means NS5A protease inhibitors. They are combined and they can be given, and actually this drug combination helps the patient from remission of hepatitis infection. That is very common cause of chronic hepatitis and end-stage liver disease. Okay, so this is about anti-hepatitis C virus drugs. Obviously, these are the newer drugs, but we should never forget ribavirin interferon alpha. This is prototype drugs. Uh, that was the primarily drugs used, but nowadays we are shifting towards this. Okay, and this response of these drugs depends on the genotype of the virion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which types of genotype that virus carries. If it is 1 and 4, we have said the resistant to these drugs, they are susceptible to ribavirin and interferon alpha. So that is why before therapy we have to make the genotype of the virion, and we have to decide which kinds of therapeutics we have to select. Okay. Now something about ribavirin, because ribavirin may come as a short note. That is why we discuss ribavirin separately. Ribavirin we have said broad spectrum. Why it is broad spectrum? Because it have activity against orthomyxo, that means like influenza virus, paramyxo like respiratory syncytial virus, arena virus, bunia virus, claviviruses. Okay, like your the Nipah virus. Nipah virus outbreaks happen in India, particularly in Kerala region. So that ribavirin was effective in Nipah viral infection also. So it's a purine nucleoside analog. Structure it's a purine nucleoside analog. Mainly it inhibits the viral mRNA synthesis. Although it has others action that unknown actually nowadays even. We do not know what are the other action, but mainly it's a viral mRNA synthesis inhibitor. This is a little bit toxic drug itself. Causes myelosuppression, reversible anemia, having teratogenicity. It is a very high potential of teratogenicity, that you should remember. Even patients, particularly respiratory syncytial virus infection, when you give this drug by aerosol formulation, so we should not allow the patients, pregnant patient, to take care, that particularly the healthcare professional to take care of these patients, because these drugs having very high chance of teratogenicity. Okay, so this point you should remember. Now, what are the uses? Hepatitis C along with interferon alpha we have said. Respiratory syncytial virus bronchiolitis, we have to use ribavirin along with we have another drug. We have said that we have to use nebulization with racemic epinephrine. For pediatric patients, RSV bronchiolitis is treated with racemic epinephrine nebulization and ribavirin aerosol formulation. Nipah virus infection, as we have already discussed. Okay, so hepatitis C virus treatment, two famous regimen is there of ribavirin along with interferon alpha, that is Serinflor. This is pharmaceutical company's name, and Rabetol from the Roche Pharmaceuticals. Okay, so this is the additional things you may not remember. You should remember the basic. what group of drug it belongs, what are the spectrum it is, mechanism in brief, formulations it have intravenous formulation, oral formulation, aerosol formulation. That means we have to give in the nebulization formulation. And what are the conditions where can we use, what are the precaution we have to take during this drug administration. Okay, so this is about the ribavirin. Now, because this drug we have said sofosbuvir is basically anti-hepatitis C virus drug. This is, we have said that viral RNA polymerase inhibitor. So non-structural protein 5 inhibitor. So how it acts basically, so just an idea and how it acts basically. So sofosbuvir goes inside the cell hepatocyte. It is activated by phosphorylation and inhibit the polymerase enzyme basically by same mechanism that counterfeit incorporation. Okay, NS5B polymerase causes dephosphorylation. So it basically inhibit, because similar mechanism actually activated by the kinases, different, that triphosphate form is there and it inhibits that. So sofosbuvir, why we are focusing this, because this name you should at least remember. Mechanism action is simple, but you should try to remember that sofosbuvir as a drug in the hepatitis C infection. Okay, so we have discussed in brief about the drugs used in hepatitis B and C. You should not forget ribavirin interferon. As a short note, interferon is very important. If you have queries, you should ask. We may not able to discuss adverse effects of many drugs because we have time constraint. You may read from the book. If you have queries, you may ask questions at all the points. Okay. Now, at the end, drugs for COVID-19 or SARS, novel coronavirus type 2. So investigational drugs, because even today we don't have any recommended, not recommended, we don't have foolproof drugs actually. That means drugs developed and passes all through clinical stages of development, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. So that is, these are investigational drugs like hydroxychloroquine, favipiravir, lopinavir and lots of other drugs are now in the stages of development. So hydroxychloroquine, like ICMR recommended the prophylactic for healthcare professionals or close contacts, 400 mg at start and 400 mg weekly for 5 weeks, or sometimes 400 mg BD at the beginning, then 400 mg weekly for 5 weeks. Okay. So how hydroxychloroquine acts? So this mechanism is written in the Harrison textbooks of medicine edition in 1989 itself. It is not at all new to us actually. It is actually known thing. So it inhibits that, mainly it inhibits the viral uncoating step mainly, because in the endosome it raises the pH and prevents the viral uncoating, and there are some other unknown actions are there. Okay, so this figure represented a high throughput screening. So high throughput screening usually used for drug development. So like we have to test many drugs which are having antiviral property against this virus. So that needs to be handled by this high throughput screening. High throughput screening is a standard method of drug development where we investigated many molecules together in a single run. Okay, so today we discuss up to this point. As we have said, many points we may not able to touch, but we try to discuss these points very saliently, very simply. If I miss any important points, you should pay attention to me. You may ask question. We try to answer that. Antiviral drugs are a little bit difficult topic itself, so try to read conceptually. Don't go into so much information. Just important point we have stressed. You should focus on that, and you should raise question about that. Thank you very much. Next section we discuss about part 2 of antiviral drugs, focusing mainly on anti-HIV drugs. Very important for you. Thank you.